Welcome to the Vol Bros presented by the Ultiwalk Club. My name is Evan. This is my brother Rustin, and we are two Vol Bros who are actually bros in real life. And we always, as always, thank the Ultiwalk Club for being our title sponsor. We invite you to check them out. 365 days per year pool open. You got pickleball and tennis ball courts, just championship golf course. Fantastic place. Rustin and I were there today with our sons. It was a lot of fun. Strongly recommend you check the Ultiwalk Club out. Great folks there. And we really do appreciate their partnership. I guess I could have played the basketball intro because men's and women's basketball both did have wins this weekend, but it's still football season and they're still in the playoff hunt. We're going to talk all about that tonight. We're going to talk about the SEC championship game tiebreaker scenario. The Sporting News did a fantastic job today on an article they released with the likelihood of which teams will make it, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to share that with you. Just a lot of stuff to talk about. So without further ado, Rustin, what did you take away from yesterday?
Well, I thought overall they played pretty well. I thought they proved that they are one of the top 10 teams in America. As I said Thursday, I didn't think there was any way they were going to win that game. Georgia hasn't lost at home in 4 years. They had motivation. They had their backs against the wall. Kirby is a master motivator. He was able to leverage last week and everything that was being said about them, and the fact that people had them out of the playoffs and all the other stuff. Kudos to their offensive line. They played a lot better than they have in a while. I have a lot of questions about some of our defensive play calling. I think it said I think Tim Banks said a lot without saying anything with some of his decision making. Very disappointed in the defensive line when you get 2 tackles for loss and no sacks. A quarterback like Georgia's quarterbacks, and I think you could have inserted any of them. But especially Carson Beck is going to carve you up if you don't force him to move around. And we did not force him to move around. Mike Bobo did a lot of what I said Thursday I thought they would do. There was a lot of jet motion, ran jet sweep several times, ran some counters off the jet sweep, ran a lot of misdirection using our defensive line's aggression against them. Kudos to him. He called a good game. And his players executed. I'm not going to mention officiating because the reality is you can't expect it to go your way. You're not at home. You're on the road in the SEC. And they called several penalties against Georgia that hurt Georgia. There was the offensive pass interference that negated about a 45-yard gain, that Georgia's receiver pushed off. The reality is you don't get pressure on the quarterback, you lose, period. Yeah. And the penalties, they only called 2 more on us for 11 yards. So, is it possible some of them came at bad moments? Sure. But it's also possible that some of them were actually right. And it is what it is. You have to play through it. I think that's probably the biggest thing I learned about our team is we are a lot better than we were 4 years ago. We are definitely nationally relevant. We went into a hostile environment that, to be honest, I don't think anybody in America would have won in last night.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And we played step for step with them for 3 quarters. But we don't have the mental toughness they do. We have not gone through the wars that they've gone through. And I would remind people, when Kirby first got to Georgia, they would go play Nick Saban and they would get their brains beat in. And they figured out, if we want to be the man, we got to beat the man. And they got tougher and they figured out what they had to do to go into Tuscaloosa and win. And then all of a sudden, the dynasty shifted, and Georgia became the team to beat, and Nick Saban kind of got forced into retirement. So that's the next step for Josh Heupel. He's got to figure out, how do you beat Kirby Smart in Athens? And until he does that, we're going to be the second best team in the SEC.
So my initial takeaways from that game was, we said the first team to 20 points wins. We said that Thursday night, and that's exactly what happened. First team that got to 20 points, the only team that got to 20 points won. I understand why people are upset about the officiating. I really do understand that. However, you can't get outscored 31-7 and in the last 3 quarters of the game and expect to win. The officiating doesn't make up that many points.
No.
When you go back and you watch the game, there is really only one drive, one touchdown that Georgia had that was legitimately gifted to them by the officials. And it was all in the same drive. There were 3 major things that happened. First of all, you had the face mask, no face mask, penalty or whatever. I don't really fault the officials on that one. Do I think it was a face mask? I mean, he didn't really have his hand on the face mask, but all the official could, they're going 100 miles an hour, and all the official could see in that moment was the dude's arm and hand was around the head area and the helmet came off. He's going to call that a face mask.
I actually thought it was, because it's not just the face mask. The ear hole counts too. And I felt like
his hand up under the.
Yeah, I felt like on one of the replays, 2 of his fingers went inside the ear hole, which is what caused the helmet to pop off. So I actually thought that was the right call.
Yeah. So whether, we're sitting there watching it in super slow motion and we're still like, I don't know, was it? If you're watching that in real speed, there's no way to know. And so he saw the helmet come off. He saw an arm near the head. He threw the flag. I understand that totally. So I'm not super upset about that one. It's the 2 penalties or 1 penalty and the lack thereof of 2 penalties after it. That's what bothered me. I think it was 2 plays after the face mask. Georgia's wide receiver hops up off the ground and punches Jalen Smith right in the head. Blatantly obvious. But, no one's even around. It's just him and Jalen. The dude just punches him right in the head. No flag. That is obviously a critical error by the officials, that instead of 1st and 10 would have been 1st and 25, which is a much different situation. Then on the touchdown run from Carson Beck on that drive, we shared this photo on our Twitter last night. I'm going to show it now too. Immediately, as soon as the play ended, I tweeted out, James Pierce Jr. just got blocked in the back horribly, and there was no flag thrown. So this is that play. James Pierce Jr. just totally blew past the left tackle, and about 1 step after the screenshot was taken, the dude just shoves James Pierce Jr. right in the back, straight onto the ground. Complete block in the back. Blatantly obvious. No call.
Okay, now hold on. So this is karma. So who's that at right end? Is that Joshua Josephs?
That's Jason Jenkins.
All right. So look where Jason Jenkins is. That's where James Pierce is supposed to be, on the other side.
I understand that.
This is 100% James Pierce blowing his assignment. So sometimes when you blow your assignment, you don't get the benefit of calls, because James Pierce shouldn't be in that gap. He should be on the other side of that defensive lineman. And because he's in that gap, Carson Beck takes off for about a 15-yard gain right here. So,
which may not have happened if he hadn't got shoved to the ground in the back, because he was about to tackle Carson Beck.
It definitely doesn't happen if he's doing his job.
Yeah.
So
then right next to him,
I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for him here. He's in the wrong place, and he absolutely blew this play.
Well, he's just one of 3 on this play that are having penalties happened against them that none of them got called. I invite you to look right next to him at Omar Norman Lott and how the dude has him around the neck. And then Jason Jenkins on the right end. We have an illegal offensive hands to the face against Jason Jenkins right there. The number 73 right tackle has Jason by the face mask. And none of those got called.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's my thing with this. The interior line stuff, that's really hard to see. And so is Omar Norman Lott being held around the neck? Yeah, he is. Is that harder to notice than the stuff on the perimeter and the edges? Yes, it is. So I get that. But the face mask on the right hand side of the screen and the block in the back to James Pierce Jr., those are right in front of the officials. Those are easy to see, and neither one of them got called. Now, was there a defensive holding on this play as well? There sure was, yes. But would those penalties have offset and instead we replay the down? Yeah, and there's no touchdown in that situation. So when you combine this with the no personal foul for throwing a punch into one of our players' heads a couple plays before this, that is a lot of yards that the officials gave Georgia on that drive. Now, did that change the outcome of the game? No, because this is only one possession. This is one touchdown. They beat us by 2. So it did not change the outcome of the game. But it's understandable why people might be upset with this particular play. Then the most hilariously bad calls of the night, in my opinion, were the Carson Beck false start that wasn't called. In that situation, he loses his balance, so he starts rocking backwards. That in and of itself is a false start. But you know what? You can even understand why the officials may not call that if the snap happens pretty quickly as he's coming back. But it didn't. Instead, he takes not one, but 2 steps backwards to catch himself before he falls, and then the snap happens, and no call, no false start. And the most hilarious of them all was when we got called for 12 men on the field. Did we have 12 men on the field? 100% yes, we did. But we all of us remember in years past, even all the way back to Hendon Hooker, him sitting there shouting at the official, telling the official to move so they can snap the ball, and the official will not move until the defender was off the field. That's why teams learned go really slow when you're going off the field. The play clock runs down. Teams have to either call timeout or they get a delay a game. That's why Jackson Moy was doing exactly what he was told to do by his coaching staff and exactly he was coached to do, because that's the way it's been forever. That's why teams do that, because teams like Tennessee, if they do sub, you punish them for it. And you go as slow as you can off the field and make them call timeout or get a delay a game. And all of a sudden last night they're saying, oh, well, there's a 3-second rule that you have to get off the. There's no 3-second rule. If there is a 3-second rule, you know how many times it's been enforced in the history of college football? 0 until last night, and then it was enforced. So that was another issue I had with that.
So leave this picture up. So this is a perfect example of what I was talking about a minute ago, that whole mental toughness issue. This is later in the game. We just said James Pierce Jr. totally blew his assignment here. Look at Omar Norman Lott. He blew his assignment too. I can't tell who that is next to him. Is that Jackson Moy?
I think it was Tyree West, but I could be wrong.
Okay. He's doing his job. He's containing his gap. He's keeping Beck in the pocket. He's doing a great job. Jason Jenkins, great job. Omar Norman Lott's in the wrong gap. He has already blown this. James Pierce is making it worse because he's in by far the wrong gap. He's 2 gaps over, and he should be on the outside keeping contained. But I want to point your eyes downfield. And again, this is football karma. Alignment and assignment. When you don't do your job, bad things happen. And in this case, penalties got called. Okay. Look at Jeremiah Thielander holding that guy in the middle of the field. Look at the 2 safeties standing behind him. Okay. The one standing in the middle is going to pick up the guy that's running free. The one to the left side of the screen, standing on the goal line, is waiting on the guy that Jeremiah Thielander is holding. Jeremiah Thielander's job, and they're in cover 3. His job in this is to hit crossers and slow them down and then let them go. He has no responsibility to be covering that guy. And not only is he covering him, he's holding him. Right next to him, is that Jalen Smith?
I can't remember who was in on that play.
I can't tell from the picture. It's either Jalen Smith or Arian Carter. Completely wrong. He is turned sideways. Carson Beck is about to run directly at him, and he has no idea that Carson Beck's running because he's in the wrong location and he's turned sideways. He should be doing the same thing Jeremiah Thielander should be doing. He should be settled into a curl zone. He should be hitting crossers and then keeping his eyes in the backfield and reading the quarterback. So Jeremiah Thielander blows this play because he gets the hold called. Carson Beck's going to get a big run here because Arion Carter or Jalen Smith, whoever that is, isn't even paying attention to the backfield. James Pierce Jr. is going to lose contain and give Beck the opportunity to run. And I would direct your attention to the opposite side of the goal line. I think that's Jermod McCoy standing back there by himself.
Top right corner.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's waiting on the guy that Arion Carter or Jalen Smith, whoever that is chasing across the field. So the coverage call was good. They had everybody covered. There's no reason for Jeremiah Thielander and whoever that other linebacker is to be doing what they're doing. So again, you get in difficult positions late in games against good teams, and if you're not mentally tough, this is the kind of stuff you do. And hopefully, I mean, coaches are going to show them this. They're going to hound this all day because there's 4 guys out of 11 out there right now doing the wrong thing. And that's what, when you do the wrong thing, bad things happen. And this is a concrete example of that. And the 4 people that are doing the wrong thing are 4 of our best players who just weren't mentally tough enough to stay disciplined and do their job and trust that if 11 guys do their job, good things will happen. If Omar Norman-Lott and James Pierce stay in their lanes right here, and Jeremiah Thielander and Arion Carter or Jalen Smith, whoever that is, play their hook zones, there's no one open. Carson Beck just has to throw this away. There's nothing. But instead, they get a first down.
I guess my other takeaway from the game, my last takeaway, I think this is certainly an example where Kirby Smart outcoached Josh Heupel, and all throughout the game last night, the adjustments they made, and Mike Bobo outcoached Tim Banks. I always call him James Banks.
Yeah,
but our decision to not cover their tight ends was certainly a strategy all game long. Like, we left them run wide open all game long, seemed like. And then we were I don't know what the game plan was going in the game. I mean, I certainly wasn't in those meetings. Clearly, they had an intention or thought that they were going to be able to get pressure with sending 4, and they didn't all night. And they never, if ever, very rarely sent more than 4. I mean, I can probably count on one hand, just off the top of my head, of times I remember where they sent more than 4. I mean, make an adjustment, right? Like, try sending more than 4 to get pressure, but we just never did.
So this is what I was alluding to earlier. And now that I look at screenshots like this, I can almost understand why Tim Banks did what he did. So Mike Bobo ran a lot of 11 personnel pretty much all night. 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. When we play man-to-man, which is what you would play when you're blitzing, that means our 2 corners and our nickel end up on their 3 wide receivers. So that means either Will Brooks or Andre Turrentine or one of the linebackers would have to cover the tight end. And I don't think Tim Banks was ever comfortable with any of those guys covering Georgia's tight ends.
Maybe
And
not.
I think that forced us into a lot of, we're just going to try and get home with 4 and play zone. The problem with that is, especially when I watch plays like this and I see what those 2 linebackers are doing right there. If those 2 linebackers were doing that majority of the night, that's why their tight ends were open so much. T-Lander and whoever that other linebacker is, they got a lot of work to do because that is just horrible technique. I would almost bet that's why he wasn't sending more pressure. Was he was he was very concerned about having to play man, and they were running a lot of misdirection, and that I think probably concerned him. I mean, my goodness, the one time he did play man on the goal line, Boo Carter got completely lost, left his man wide open in the corner of the end zone, and luckily the dude bobbled the ball until he was out of bounds and dropped it. Yeah. Should have been an easy touchdown because Boo Carter, well, it hit him in the hands. He just kind of didn't hold on, but Boo Carter was lost. Like he had no clue where he was supposed to be.
Yeah. And Idris Farouk was lost later in the game.
Yep. Which it also says a lot that on the goal line we decided to roll Idris Farouk in there instead of Will Brooks or Andre Turrentine because we were so uncomfortable with either one of those guys playing man. And then Farouk got totally smoked. So we said at the beginning of the season, or I said at the beginning of the season, my biggest concern was safety. And I think that got exposed.
I'm going to go to the comments and then we'll keep on our stuff here. Kevin said, let's go Vols, hold those heads up. Tough game, lots to comment on, but we're still 8-2 with a chance for the playoffs. Hating the loss, but still proud of the team. Yeah, I think that's a great perspective. Papa J, welcome. Good to have you. Said Georgia probably had their best game of the year, and we didn't. And he's exactly right. Georgia played the Georgia that we saw last night, particularly in the second half, is the Georgia that we thought we would see all year long. They played very, very well. And that's why that makes games like last week at Ole Miss and those games kind of bizarre. Like what happened? Papa J said Banks won't be coaching in a new D1 team after this year, D2, if at all. No, I think he'll still be the defensive coordinator at Tennessee. Let's see. Kevin said, can we talk about Zakai shooting Felix's ball? Yeah, we'll talk about basketball later on. JL said, what a joke of a game. The powers that be got the outcome they wanted, and we didn't help ourselves. We did not help ourselves. That is correct. Let's see. Rhonda said, happy Sunday evening, everyone. The sun still rose today. We are going to pick ourselves up and get it done. Go Vols always. I think people might be encouraged when they see the SEC championship scenarios that we're going to show here in a little bit. But that actually helps, in my opinion, Tennessee's playoff chances. Eric, welcome, buddy. He said, what's up, all bros? Sucks Tennessee lost, but still think they got in the playoffs with 2 losses. Hope so. We're on the outside looking in right now. But I think a lot's about to change in the next 3 weeks. And you'd be like, well, why 3? We only have 2 weeks left. Well, because the conference championship week.
On3 just released their bracketology. They got us as the 10 seed playing at Ole Miss with the winner going to Alabama.
Well, I'll show you some stuff here in a little bit.
Which is interesting that On3 thinks Alabama's going to win the SEC championship.
They have the easiest path to, other than Texas and Texas A&M, they have the easiest path to the championship game right now. It's what we predicted would happen in July with the tiebreaker. It's about to happen. There's 6 tiebreakers, and we said it's probably going to get to the 4th one where it becomes the conference's opponent average winning percentage, and that's exactly what is happening right now. I'm going to show everybody how that's going on here in just a little bit. Mississippi Vol, welcome, buddy. He said, evening, guys. Don't really have much to say after that effort last night. Just going to sit back, watch, and listen tonight. Our basketball teams are looking good, however. They sure are. They had 2 really good wins this weekend. Rhonda said, I still say it's great to be Tennessee Vol. Going through the Kiffin Dooley Jones fiasco seems like a cakewalk. This does. You're right. Greg, welcome, buddy. He said Kirby's O line went from worst to first. They certainly played well last night.
They answered the bell. You got to give them credit. They showed up and did their job. Mike Bobo helped him a lot. He did a lot of creative things. He put our defense in some situations that I don't think they were ready for. And he called a fantastic game.
Jonathan said last night's game was tough to watch. We didn't play good enough to win, but the refs are terrible. I agree with all of that. Good to have you, Jonathan. Minalaki, hey, good to have you. Welcome. Good to have you. Let's see. Tony, welcome, buddy. He said, I never thought we'd win at Athens, but their offensive line dominated our defensive line. Tim Bakes called a terrible game, and our offensive passing game is average at best.
Okay. There's a couple more comments coming up bashing Tim Banks. I don't think Tim Banks called a bad game. I think Tim Banks put them in position to be successful, and they didn't execute. And I think Tim Banks was limited because of the issues they were having in the secondary playing man-to-man. If you can't trust your safeties to cover people one-on-one, you can't play man. And Bobo was doing some creative things. He was doing some switch routes off the line. Again, we tried to play man with Boo. Boo got completely lost and almost gave up a walk-in touchdown. If you're the defensive coordinator, you can't be stupid. Like, you can't sit there and go, dadgummit, we're going to play man, and watch your secondary just implode because they're just not, Will Brooks is not going to cover anybody man-to-man. Andre Turrentine is a liability. I said at the beginning of the season, he's played okay at times, but you can't put him in man. And Boo Carter showed he's not ready for this limelight yet. Like, will he be a fantastic player? Absolutely. He's gonna be one of the best ever to put on the orange and white. But right now, on the road in Athens at night, covering Dominic Lovett, he's not there.
Rhonda said, Nico, I thought gave it everything he had. He went down at the end. That kind of worried me. Yeah, it did me too. When I was like, oh boy. Oh boy. Kevin
I wouldn't be surprised if he sits this Saturday and they let Gaston play the whole game.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. It's senior night anyway. Let Gaston get the start. Go beat UTEP. Kevin said games are 60 minutes. Seasons are 10 plus games long, and dynasties take more than one team of guys to develop. We've come from Dooley to this. It's a process, and the team looked better than before. That's true. Absolutely. Papa J said it should have been illegal motion on Carson Beck on that one. False start. I mean, that's absolutely. Sam said, I don't think the officiating was too bad. We did not get to the quarterback. And on offense, we need to do a better job of taking what the defense is giving. Welcome, Sam. We're glad you're with us. Jonathan said our defense basically disappeared last night. Yeah. Run defense was fantastic. Like, how many rushes over 10 yards did they have? Like one?
Yeah. I mean, we only gave up 106 yards rushing on I just lost it. We only gave up 108. No. Yeah, 106 yards on 31 carries. They only averaged 3.5 yards a carry.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think they only had one rush of more than 10 yards. So,
and that would have been Carson Beck.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. So maybe two then.
No, I don't. I think he was it because Frazier only averaged 3.5 yards a carry.
Let's see. Sam said about that deal. He said James Pierce Jr. took the gap instead of staying on the edge, but we need to play better and not whine about calls. Yeah, I agree. It's just when they give you when the calls lead to free points for the other team. That's when I have an issue with it. Sean said Bama is Georgia's kryptonite and Georgia is ours, it looks like. Welcome, Sean. Good to have you. JL said they went back and looked at the 12-man deal, but they didn't review the fumble. And unfortunately, that's one of the ridiculous technicalities in that rule. If it's ruled a catch and a fumble, they can review it. If it's ruled an incomplete pass, they can't. Like, that was ridiculous. And side note, it was a fumble. I mean, the dude was tucking the ball away. That means you have control of it. If you're taking 2 steps and tucking the ball, you have control of it. And they said, no catch. And I was like, good grief. Let's see. Welcome, Evan. He said, thought Tennessee played pretty well, just getting pressure the quarterback. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Absolutely. Bertonius, that is a new name. Welcome. Said, as long as the quarterback doesn't move forward, they can move. That's not an illegal motion.
So technically that is true, but it's also an interpretation. If it's a stumble, if you're falling out of your stance, they can call it if you move backwards.
They call it about 99 times out of 100.
If it's a defined movement and it's clear that you're about to, go in motion or something, then they'll overlook it. But if you fall out of your stance, they're supposed to call it.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know if it's T-Rex, or Trex. I don't know. It was one of the two. He wants to see the SEC scenarios. Mino Aggie said, can we agree to hit the like button? I agree. Yes. Let's do that. Will, who is an Ohio State fan, said, rooting for you guys to make it in. Yeah, I'm rooting for you this weekend, Will. We need y'all to just wax Indiana, please. That would be wonderful. That would help us out. And we'll talk about those scenarios too and who we need to win this weekend. This weekend there are some seriously important games across the country this weekend, many of which directly impact Tennessee. So there's a lot of stuff happening this weekend. Jeff, welcome, buddy. He says, super disappointed with the results last night, but anyone talking about firing coaches needs to have their heads examined.
Yep.
Yeah. Our coaching staff is a very good coaching staff. He said, missing the playoff would be tough, but we have come so far as a program. Yeah, I agree. Kevin said, thanks for the breakdown, Russ. I know that's not what this is for, but it really helps to see a screen capture and have you point some things out. Yeah, I like that too. We might do that more, actually. Sean said, I'm glad I'm not a Rodney Gardner student tomorrow.
That one screenshot we just showed, James Pierce and Omar Norman Lott are not going to want to be in the room. Rodney Garner is going to light them up.
Yeah. I don't understand this comment. I would sit Dylan Sampson as well. He's the best player on the field.
Yeah. He means against UTEP. I don't know that we can afford
that.
Oh,
okay. I got you.
If Deshaun Bishop isn't healthy, we can't afford that.
Let's see. Rusty said the officials went out of their way to not hurt Georgia after they got down 10-0. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. Tony said, Russ and I respect your knowledge of the game, but we had to pressure back. When you can't get there with 4, then you bring more, for sure. You can't give him all day to throw. Right. To me, that's on Banks for not coming after him.
What I'm saying is, on the times when he did, because there were times when he did send pressure, and that's when guys like Boo Carter get lost and he gives up a wide open. I mean, that should have been a touchdown. Dude just dropped the ball. And Boo was nowhere near him. He had no shot at covering that guy, and turned around. What made it even more disturbing to me was after it happened, Boo turned around and looked at our belts like, what was I supposed to do? Was that mine? It's like, dude, you're the only one on that side of the field. Yeah, it's you.
Deborah said, welcome, Deborah. Good to have you. She said, Russ, how predictable is our offensive play calling? There's criticism of it being too pedestrian, but I don't know.
I don't think it has been. I think it's been comparable to the past. I saw somebody, making comments about, why aren't we taking more shots downfield like we have in the past? I think it's pretty simple.
We don't hit him.
Jalen Hyatt's not out there.
Nico overthrows him. Like Dante Thornton Jr. on the one we did last night. He overthrew him by 10 yards.
Yeah, Nico, I think it's two things. Number one, Nico's inconsistent on the deep ball. Shouldn't stop you from tempting. You should still take shots. But I think the other issue is I don't see Chris Brazzell getting open. I don't see Squirrel White getting open against man-to-man. If you look, when does Squirrel White catch the ball? It's typically in the middle of zones. I don't see our receivers separating. I don't see a Ramel Keaton out there being uncontrollable against man-to-man. I don't see Jalen Hyatt out there screaming through the middle of a defense. Our receivers have to get better. I mean, that's the best way I can say it, because right now they're not a threat.
Rhonda said the time of possession was huge. When we had a long drive, it didn't produce a score. Georgia did. Yeah, that's a good point. Kevin said, I think the offensive line, tight end checkdowns, and Beck getting some confidence late in the first half were Georgia's keys to win.
Yep.
If you found Texas said defensive line didn't get any pressure, our vaunted defense got exposed by mid-level offense. I think Georgia's offense actually played up to what their caliber potential was.
Yeah, I wouldn't call
our
a
rush
team.
defense. Our rush defense was fantastic. It was just the passing defense that was rough.
Yeah, I wouldn't call a team that scored 30 on Texas, 41 on Mississippi State, 31 on Auburn, 41 on Alabama, a mid-level offense.
Yeah. It is T-Rex, not Trex. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it. He said, what about Igor? We're going to talk about basketball here in a little while. Rusty makes a fantastic point. He said, Dante Thornton's drop in the second quarter was a catastrophe. Ended our drive and put Georgia out there and go score again. That is a fantastic point. And that was a critically important moment in the game. I mean, you hear coaches all the time talk about momentum in football. That was a huge momentum swing because that was certainly going to be a first down.
Yeah.
That was a huge drop, and there was no one near him. Nobody. I think he thought there were people near him, and he was about to get blown up, but there wasn't. There was no one near him. Really unfortunate drop. Sandra said, if we play like we did, welcome, Sandra. It's good to have you. She said, if we play like we did Saturday, we're not going to go far in the playoffs if we make it. Depends on who we get, if the draw that we get in the playoff. When I show the playoff scenarios here in a second, it's crazy. It's crazy. That's all I can say. It's crazy. Especially Boise State. Boise State could potentially end up a 3 seed in the playoff. It's crazy what's going on right now.
And the playoffs are going to be all about matchups. I mean, it's
right. Exactly.
It's just like the NCAA tournament. It's going to come down to matchups.
Rebel Jew, welcome, buddy. Hope you're feeling better. Hope you're out of the hospital. I said AP has Tennessee at number 10. That's right. Makes me feel better about where the committee has them. I agree. But here's what's wild. And I'm going to give a little preview right now of what we're going to talk about later. You know, Rustin and I, we've said for months now, if you're the number 12 team, you're out of the playoff because it's reserved for the group of 6, best record. So they're like, if you're a number 11, you're kind of on the bubble because there might be an upset in a conference championship game that knocks you out. So we've been saying, at least I have been, and he's agreed with me for months now. In order to feel confident and secure about being in the playoff, you have to be in the top 10. Well, based on today's AP poll, Tennessee is at number 10. They would be the first team out of the playoff. So even at number 10, you're not safe. And I'm going to show that to everybody here in a little bit.
They're setting it up. They're setting it up for whenever Indiana or Notre Dame wins, that whichever one of those loses, or they're setting it up for whenever Indiana or Notre Dame loses. Whichever one of them loses, they'll be out. Here's a stat for you. Georgia has played more ranked teams, wait for it, than Oregon, Penn State, Miami, Texas, and Indiana combined.
I believe it. Totally. I believe it. They have the toughest strength of schedule in the country. It's literally the number 1 strength of schedule in the country.
If they don't allow strength of schedule to play a part in this, that stat I just read will be the most indicting thing possible.
Yeah. And why would you ever schedule anyone tough at all, ever?
No.
Like, if all they care about is the wins and losses, then make your schedule as easy as humanly possible. And if you're a Georgia fan, you got to be looking at next year like, well, crap, here we go again, because they're going to have the exact same schedule next year, just the locations flip flopped as far as the SEC is concerned. So they're going to have another crazy hard schedule next year. Let's see. Yeah, T-Rex clarified. He said he was talking about Reston Dillon against UTEP. I doubt he'll get a ton of carries against UTEP. I agree. He said the man has carried our offense. Totally agree. Greg said, cheer us up, bring on the scenarios. Rusty said the tight ends were open all night. They sure were. Ooh, Rhonda. Whoa. Rhonda might be onto something here. She said, how big is all this sports gambling with these games? So there were some folks. There were some folks last night who brought that up. That I don't know, man. I'm not naive enough to think that it's not playing. It's not playing a factor in it. I don't know. We'll see. Lidzo, good to have you, buddy. Good to have you. Kevin said, no doubt Dillon is the best, most mature player we have on offense. Can Peyton Lewis not do the lion's share of the carries against UTEP? Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you'll probably see him get the most carries. Yeah, okay. Jeff makes a good point because this was bizarre. I agree. He said, did anyone see the multiple times where a Georgia player rerouted and hit one of our players that were already engaged in blocking? It happened at least twice that the camera caught. And it was like egregious. It was, one was on offense. John Campbell had the defensive end just totally locked up, and a linebacker who was coming towards Nico stopped, went over and blew up John Campbell from the side, and then came back and went towards Nico. And I'm like, what the heck? And then it happened again on a punt. It was bizarre.
It's legal.
Yeah, well, it was cheap shots for sure.
I'll direct you to the video of Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield sitting with, I can't remember who the other guys were, but sitting with a couple of guys in the NBA after their first season in the NBA. And those guys are talking about playing Tennessee and how on the opening tip-off, they talked about how the refs all watch the ball. And so when the ball gets tossed in the air, the refs all immediately look to the ball, and nobody sees what Grant and Admiral and Jordan Bone and Jordan Bowden are doing to everybody else on the court while the ball's in the air. And the commentary is absolutely hysterical, but Grant and Admiral are grinning from ear to ear laughing at these dudes talking about the cheap shots they take every time there's a tip-off. So part of it.
Tony said, not saying to fire coaches, but I'm not high on our wide receiver coach. Receivers should be better. What are your thoughts?
Kelsey Pope's a good receivers coach. He's, I mean, you got to work with what you got. You know, we don't know how injured these guys are. I think Brew's probably extremely injured. Dante Thornton was a game time decision. You know, they clearly said, okay, we're only going to put him in on certain possessions because we want to limit his snaps. We want him to be effective. I think Squirrel's playing extremely injured. I also think that Squirrel is undersized and probably not able to be a major contributor in these games. You know, again,
had some great catches last night, but it was nice to see him raise his arm above his shoulders. That's the first time we've actually seen that in 5 weeks.
Nico also hung him out to dry twice and almost got his lower body chopped in half.
Yep, he sure did.
You know, so it's
Rhonda makes a good point here. She said that was also their first home game. It was 37 days. So that added to the hype and everything. She's exactly right. They were certainly hungry. Rebel Jew just hit the nail on the head. He said Notre Dame and Indiana need to take a loss. It could be this weekend for both of them. Vols win out, we're in the playoff. Then he's exactly right. I think that is exactly what needs to happen.
I don't think they both do. I don't think they both have to. I think just one.
At least one. At least one.
I think
Preferably Notre Dame, because they've already got a loss to Northern Illinois.
I think let's say Notre Dame gets in. Okay, you've got the ACC champ, you got the Big 12 champ. Neither of those conferences is getting more than one. You got Notre Dame, and you've got the group of 5. That's 4. Okay, so that means there's 8 spots left. They'll take 4 Big 10 teams, 4 SEC teams, and I still say the 4 SEC teams will be Texas, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee.
You're missing Ole Miss in there.
They're not going to be in it.
Who do you think is going to beat them?
I don't think anybody has to beat them. I think they're not good enough, and I don't think their strength of schedule or their record says they should be there.
They beat Georgia.
One fluke. They also lost to Kentucky.
Yeah, well, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. JL said pass interference on Squirrel after the Thornton drop. Sure was. I said it as soon as it happened. I was like, I think you got there a little early. And then they showed the replay. And I was like, yeah, you got there a lot early. Kevin said, maybe I'm nuts, but I don't see Beck as an elite quarterback. He seems to get rattled if he gets hit. But it seems like the game gets faster for him in those situations. I agree. Sanders said there was a lot of people saying we might not make it in the playoff. Rusty said, even if we do sneak in the playoffs, we're going on the road. That's true, but I would rather be in than out. You know, if you're in, you're playing for an opportunity to win the national championship. That's all that matters. Just get in. However you get in, just get in. That's the point.
I'll also point out Ole Miss has to go into the swamp this Saturday. Just keep an eye on that one.
Yep, that's on our pick'ems for this week. Sam said, can you imagine the look on the faces of some playoff teams coming to an SEC home field? Yeah. Yep. Evan said Danny White and Greg Sankey will burn the country to the ground if Tennessee doesn't get in. That's easy for a Bama fan to say. Evan's a Bama fan. Somehow all the polls have Bama ranked higher than Tennessee, even though Tennessee beat them head to head. It's like 2022 all over again. Let's see. Rhonda said, that's great. Oh, she's talking about Rebel. Rusty said, Texas has no business being in the top 5. I agree. They haven't played anywhere near as the schedule that the other 5 SEC teams ranked lower than them have. Let's see. Yeah, Jonathan makes a great point. He said, I thought to start the year we might not make the playoffs because it's hard to play consistently with a freshman quarterback. Yeah, I mean, he's right. That's exactly right. Nico's done a good job, but you're right. Big Orange said committee's going to, give us the shaft unless some other teams lose that we need to lose. And yeah, I mean, it's hard not to agree with him because we've seen it before, right? We've seen it many times. Like he said, so strength of schedule was never really important to the committee. I mean, not really, sadly. It's based on wins and losses. They just care. That's all they care about. They look at wins and losses, and it shouldn't be that way. But sadly, that's what they look at. So why play tough schedules? Like, why schedule hard games, especially in the 4 non-conference games? Rebel Juice said SEC championship seems like the Texas-Georgia rematch. So actually right now, it's probably going to end up being Texas and Bama. And we're going to get to that here in a little bit. Sam said, if strength of schedule does not get considered, Greg Sankey didn't do his job. Yeah, I agree. But sadly, they don't value that as much as they do however many numbers are in that loss column. Rhonda said, I thought it was interesting we met the spread exactly last night. Yep. Let's see. Rusty's talking about the punch. Yep, absolutely. I'm not sure what Bobby was wanting you to post. This was at 9:45, so I'm about 5 minutes behind, but I'm trying to get through them.
I don't know.
Only 10 UC said, got to go to bed, but I'll leave this positive note for my husband. We were trying to be the first team to beat Georgia at home since 2019. Alabama and Georgia have both suffered their losses on the road as well. We're no better, no worse in that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. Let's see. I'm trying to get through all these. John said, I still think we make the playoffs, but it'll be close. Evan
Sure.
was joking around about the Bama being ranked higher, and he said it's quality loss. Elijah said, losing to Kentucky at home should automatically knock you out in regards to Ole Miss. He said, same thing with freaking Northern Illinois. That's the one that gets me. Notre Dame should not get in because they lost to Northern Illinois. It's like
Okay. Army's going to handle it this Saturday.
Hey, I'm a big Army fan this Saturday. We're going to talk about that too. Let's see. VFL said he feels like Ole Miss is better than Alabama. Let's see. Kevin said Florida's a dumpster fire, but they didn't look horrible yesterday. No, they did not.
When DJ Lagway's 100%, they're a different team. He handles things well.
Evan said, don't lose in November. The committee seems to overlook earlier losses in the season 100%.
Yeah.
You can lose the first week and end up totally fine. But if you lose in week 12 to week 14, disaster. Absolutely. Let's see. Papa J said our defense will have to be ready for Vanderbilt. He's exactly right.
They got a lot to solve with that discipline issue because if we thought Georgia ran a lot of misdirection, Vanderbilt is misdirection on almost every play.
Jeff said, basically, we need to win out. We need Texas to beat Texas A&M, Ole Miss to get beat by Florida, Army to beat Notre Dame, and Ohio State to blow out Indiana, and we're in. If all that happens, I agree. That would be that's a best case scenario right there. Sam said, I'm not sure the playoff picks are as much wins and losses as participation across the country. That's probably actually got a little bit to do with it too, trying to get representation from all across the country. Let's see. Rebel G said Indiana will definitely lose to Ohio State. Army might get lucky and beat Notre Dame. Feel strong on Florida beating Ole Miss. Big win for Tennessee if so. Kevin said, it's funny how many don't like Tennessee or our fans fervor, but they like how our fans travel and spend money. Yeah, for sure. Rhonda said, did y'all see the Vandy quarterbacks trying to get another year? I didn't see that, but.
Yeah, he petitioned the NCAA.
Oh, Bobby was talking about that video you're talking about with Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield. It's a funny video. I remember watching that. Let's see. Big Orange said, I love Tennessee Vols. That includes football, basketball, baseball, but I've been on cloud nine ever since we won the SEC championship, natty, and baseball while being number one overall team. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a great time to be a Vol. Elijah said, I hate Florida, but Lagway is going to be a stud for them if he doesn't transfer. Agreed.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to do player of the game because we lost. So do you have a play of the game that you thought was fun to watch? I do. It was Boo Carter's punt return. That was my play of the game.
Loved just because of the play design, the fact that they've been holding on to it and setting it up for weeks. The Miles Kitzelman plunge for the second touchdown.
Yeah.
Loved that.
That was awesome.
They haven't shown anything remotely close to that in 2 years. And they've been setting it up literally for weeks. That was beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a better pick than mine. That was a great one. Honorable mention to Squirrel White for catching the ball when he almost got his body broken in half. Honorable mention. So here's what let's do. Let's do this. These are the current SEC standings. So you got Texas and Texas A&M both tied for first, each with one conference loss. That is going to sort itself out because they still have to play each other. They have to play each other on the last game of the season, November 30th. So one of those two teams will be, unless Kentucky somehow beats Texas this weekend at Texas, and then A&M also beats Texas. One of those two teams will be in the well, even then, it'd be A&M. So one of those two teams will be in the SEC championship game. Whoever wins that game essentially will be in it. Then you've got this deal. You got 4 teams below them, all with 2 losses. If we assume that those 4 teams win out the rest of the way, the next 2 games, then you have a 5-way tie for second place. The loser of the Texas and A&M game and the other 4 teams below them. Now, here is this is all from the Sporting News, by the way. This is on their website, and I invite everybody to go find this. Tell you what, I'll post a link to it right now in the comments. Minalaki said Dylan Sampson touchdown and message to the kid in South Africa. That's a good point. Yeah, that was a good point. And Rhonda agreed with her. So Big Orange, you're welcome to stay, buddy. We're all baseball fans too, but we're talking about Georgian football right now. So I just posted on Facebook and YouTube, and I'll try to get it on Twitter as well.
Before you jump into this, I just want to point out one thing that I think could play a major factor in the next 2 weeks. We have not, every year in college football, there's always one Saturday where there's just a ton of upsets and the top 25 just gets, turned upside down. That hasn't happened yet this year. But I want to point you to this weekend's schedule. You got Ohio State, Indiana. Okay. One of those teams is going to get, knocked way down in the top 25. Ole Miss is at the Swamp. That could be a major trap game for them. Penn State, number 4 Penn State, is at Minnesota. That could be a trap game there. BYU, who just came off a humiliating loss to Kansas, has to go to 8-2 Arizona State.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge game. We're going to talk about the Big 12 as well.
Coach Prime and Colorado
there's another one.
Have to go to Kansas,
who just beat
came
BYU.
Off back-to-back upsets. This would be 3 in a row.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Big 12 as well.
Army's got Notre Dame. Texas A&M is at Auburn. Alabama is at Oklahoma. LSU plays Vanderbilt. There's some opportunities in there for some significant top 25 shakeup.
Absolutely. 100% agree. This weekend is huge.
And it hadn't happened yet this year.
Yeah, this weekend is going to be a huge weekend across the country. We're going to talk all about it. But here are these are the tiebreaker rules for the SEC. Obviously, if there's a tie, first step is head-to-head competition. Now, here's the problem. When we look at those 5 teams, if we assume Texas beats A&M and A&M joins this group below them, here's the deal. All the games played against each other, nobody has more than 1 win. The wins are all the same. Everybody has 1 win except A&M, and they didn't play any of these teams. So that one doesn't work. It's out the door. So we go to number 2. Now, when you look at number 2 and number 3, they're very similar. They involve, first of all, number 2, what was your record against all common conference opponents? And number 3, okay, if the record against all the same conference opponents, common opponents are the same, well, let's just look at the highest ranked opponent. What'd you do against them? Did you win or lose against them? Here's the problem. With 5 teams tied at number 2, there is not a single common conference opponent for all 5 teams. So number 2 and number 3, they're gone. So now we're to step 4. And I invite everybody to remember what we talked about back in July before the season started when this was released. We went through these tiebreakers then. And I said on the show that night that it is very possible that this season we could get to the step 4 tiebreaker. And in the step 4 tiebreaker, it's no longer even in your hands. It is taken out of your hands. And you go to the cumulative conference winning percentage of all your conference opponents. So these 5 teams that are tied, it is now taken out of their hands. And the teams that they played in the conference schedule, which, side note, they didn't pick that schedule. The conference picked that schedule. And so the teams that they played in the conference, you take all of their winning percentages and average them all together. And whoever has the highest average winning percentage of your opponents, not what you've done, what your opponents have done, that's who determines who gets in the playoff, or not the playoff, the SEC championship game. And if by some crazy chance, which it would never, I don't think, ever get to this point, but if there were 2 teams left that had the same, their opponents had the same average winning percentage, then it goes to step 5, which is scoring margin. And then if by some crazy chance it's the same after that, which it never would be, then it goes to literally a coin flip, a random draw.
Greg Sankey's, and that's not a coin flip because there'll be multiple people. Greg Sankey's
Right.
going to take off his SEC hat, and we're going to throw 5 names in there, and he's going to draw one out.
Yep. So already, and I invite everybody to go back and check me on this. Go back to July and look at our episode on these tiebreakers. We said it on air that night. It is very likely we'll get to step 4 in season 1 of this. And that's exactly what's happened. So the Sporting News did the work for us, and they give the path to the playoff for each team, or the path to the SEC championship game. And then they come down here and they say, so here's what's most likely to happen. They think Texas will beat A&M on the 30th, which I do as well. And so then here's what you got. You've got, no common opponents. So at that point, we have to go to step 4. And this right here is the breakdown. So right now, among those 5 teams, Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, that would be tied with 2 losses, Alabama's conference opponents' average winning percentage is 509. They're 27-26. So right now, Alabama actually has, apart from the Texas and Texas A&M winner, they have the most direct path to the playoff, assuming everybody wins the next couple weeks.
So this would actually be the absolute best case scenario for Tennessee. Because
I agree totally.
I 100% think Alabama would beat Texas. And if that happens, Texas would be out. And the 4 SEC teams that would be in would be Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and Ole Miss.
So here's the thing. I think if Texas and Alabama play in the championship game, that is 100% a benefit to Tennessee. Because first of all, Tennessee's not having to play in the game. Listen, all these teams highlighted in blue right here, all these teams, all that would have 2 losses, none of those teams want to play in the SEC championship game, because if they lose, they now have 3 losses. 3. And you're going to put a 3-loss SEC team in the playoff?
No, A&M would have 3 at that point.
Well, that's true. 3 overall losses, 2 conference losses.
Yeah.
And so the winner, if Texas wins out and then Texas won in the SEC championship game, the loser, if it's Alabama, Georgia, it's probably not going to get past Georgia with the conference, average winning percentage deal. But if one of those 2 teams loses, particularly if it's Alabama, that's what Tennessee really needs to happen. If Alabama gets in the SEC championship game and they lose to Texas, Alabama, I know they're the darling of the playoff committee, but they might fall all the way out of the playoff at that point, because they'd be a 3-loss overall team. And Tennessee has beaten Alabama already this season. So how in the world, and I know I'm getting battered ball syndrome even just thinking about it, flashing back to 2022, but how in the world could the playoff committee put a 3-loss Alabama into the playoff over a Tennessee team that beat them head to head? That's a 2-loss overall Tennessee team. And I know you're saying, well, they're good because they played in the SEC championship game. Hey, ask Georgia about last year. Anybody who thinks that the SEC championship game wouldn't knock a team out of the playoff, just go ask Georgia about 2022, or excuse me, 2023, and how that worked out for them. So honestly, it is a best case scenario for Tennessee if this plays out the way we're looking at right here, and Texas beats Alabama in the SEC championship game. That is a best case scenario for Tennessee, and potentially a very likely one. So that is the current scenario to get to the SEC championship game. We're already at tiebreaker number 4. I'm not surprised by this at all because we predicted it last year. Rhonda made a good point. She said, just ask Florida State last year. Yeah, and they didn't even lose their conference championship game. And they still got left out. Will said conferences are going to axe the conference championship games pretty soon, in my opinion. I totally agree.
They should.
Because they're going to see what's going to happen this year with the SEC, and they'll be like, whoa, we don't need to do that. And last year with the SEC. VFL and Texas said they got us covered with beating Bama in the JS championship game. I hope so, man. Let's see here. So some of the comments coming through about this. Sam said, so if Vanderbilt beats LSU, it helps Tennessee. LOL. It actually 100% does.
Mm-hmm.
Because then if Vanderbilt beats LSU and then Tennessee beats Vanderbilt, that makes that win look even better. Also, that's a huge deal because Tennessee beat Vanderbilt, and if Tennessee beats Vanderbilt, that means that Tennessee beat Alabama and Vanderbilt, who also beat Alabama.
It also helps Tennessee against Ole Miss. Ole Miss lost to LSU. So if Vandy beats LSU and Tennessee beats Vandy, it immediately propels Tennessee in front of Ole Miss.
Absolutely. It's a big deal. Absolutely. Let's see. Will said Ohio State won't drop out of the top 10 if they somehow lose to an undefeated number 5 Indiana.
I wouldn't say that.
I agree with you.
Nope.
I agree with you.
I wouldn't say that. And I'll tell you why. First of all, it'd be their second loss. Okay. It's coming at the wrong time of year. But listen to this. I just looked this up, and I think this matters a lot. Tennessee currently has the number 18 strength of schedule in the country. Ole Miss has the number 29 strength of schedule in the country. Alabama has the number 18 strength of schedule in the country. Even Penn State, as crappy as their schedule is, number 35 strength of schedule in the country. Indiana, 106.
Yeah.
So if your second loss is to a team with the number 106 strength of schedule in the country, you're not going to be in the top 10 anymore.
VFL and Texas said Big 12 doesn't matter anymore. Only the conference champion is getting in. I agree with that, but that is why they matter, because the conference champion is going to steal a spot from a team who should be in the playoff. That's what's about to happen. And so we're going in just a second, I'm going to pull up the Big 12 standings, and we're going to look at who's playing who this weekend. And it's all the top 4 teams in the Big 12 right now who are battling to get in the championship game. They all have huge games this weekend. And so we're going to talk about that. Deborah said,
and what stinks is none of the 4 who are in contention, none of them deserve to be in the playoff. So not only are they going to take a spot, they're going to take a spot that they don't deserve.
Deborah said, just for fun, Athlon Sports is predicting Tennessee versus SMU in the Gator Bowl. So that would mean if that happens that Tennessee did not get in the playoff. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Austin said it's a conflict of interest that the tiebreaker rule number 4 is based off of who the conference gives you as your conference schedule. Yeah, I agree. It sure is. Ash McValls, welcome, buddy. He said somebody on Reddit has put all the tiebreakers into a formula where all you have to do is select the winners of the games, and it tells you who gets in. It's going to be Texas versus Bama if they go chalk. Yep, that's right. And that is legitimately the best case scenario for Tennessee as well. Tennessee does not want to be in the SEC championship game at this point.
Honestly, if Texas were to beat Bama, they would knock Bama out of the playoffs. Either way, right. Tennessee wins in that scenario either way.
And so, because let's say Bama beats Texas. Well, Tennessee beat Bama. And so Bama beats Texas. That makes Tennessee look better than Texas. None of the teams that are 2-loss teams want to play in the SEC championship game. None of them do, because it's a you could legit be knocked out of the playoff for playing an extra game in the SEC championship game. Mina, like he said, step 7, 4 bourbons and a coin toss. That's pretty good. Rhonda said, my watch is telling me to breathe and we haven't even gotten there yet. Let's see. Kevin makes a great point. He said the committee just won't leave Texas out. There's too much money lost if they're out. That's a fair point. And it's sad that we have to think that way, but you're right. We sadly do have to think that way.
It depends. If they can't come up with any rational reason to keep them in, that will matter. I mean, they have to answer to people at the end of the day. And if they lose in the SEC championship, there's not going to be a whole lot of reason why they should get to stay in.
Jonathan said, well, no, Evan said, got to have the mentality to win it all. So Evan's a Bama fan, and he's right. If you're in Alabama right now, you have to have the mentality of we have to win all of it because if they lose the SEC championship game, they won't get in. I mean, like I just don't think they will. Especially if Ohio State and Indiana is a close game. Let's see. Jonathan said, how many more seasons will the SEC championship game exist? I predict.
How many years are left on the TV contract?
Yeah, that's what I was sitting here trying to think of.
As soon as that contract runs out, that game is gone.
Yeah. JL said Hayter Dinich would put a 3-loss team in. Jeff said the SEC won't punish a loser of the championship game by leaving them out. So here's the deal. The SEC doesn't get to pick.
Yeah, it's not their call.
It's the playoff committee. They're the ones picking. And that what you're saying literally happened last year to Georgia.
And I'll go back to what we said a couple weeks ago. The person representing the SEC on that committee is Arkansas's athletic director, who doesn't have a whole lot of love for Texas or Alabama. So I think he'd be more than happy to leave either one of them out.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. Like last season, Georgia was undefeated, number 1 team in the country. And they lost in the SEC championship game, and they went from number 1 to number 5 and were out of the playoff because of one loss in the SEC championship game. So there's actually historical precedent for that happening. I do not see how they put a 3-loss team in the playoff. It does not benefit anybody to play the SEC championship game. So, I mean, they'll make some money off of it. But if your goal is to win a national championship, it ain't benefiting people. Let's see. Oh, Sam. Sam said, how many players are going to opt out of bowl games if they don't make the playoffs? I believe we're about to see more of this than ever before. 1 bajillion%. Yes, oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It'll become a glorified spring practice.
Big Orange said Georgia's going to make the SEC championship and lose their third game, so the Vols will be going to the playoffs, so the Dogs get an early start on their grueling offseason. Yeah, so some other stuff would have to happen in order for Georgia to win the tiebreaker. There would have to be some more things, dominoes fall into place for Georgia to get into the SEC championship game. Like, for example, there's really only for right now, Alabama has the tiebreaker with conference opponents' average winning percentage. We'll think about it like this. For Alabama, there's only one more weekend that really even matters for that, and that's this weekend. Because next weekend, two of their opponents, Tennessee and Alabama, play each other. So that's going to average out anyway. I mean, like that's essentially a null game for Alabama because they're going to get one win and one loss based on, so that one doesn't really matter. Then you look at, the rest of the people they've played. Georgia, I think they play somebody this week, but Georgia won't have their last game of the season against Georgia Tech. So whoever Georgia plays this week, that game would impact Alabama. It wouldn't impact Georgia. That's what's crazy. That's the insanity of what we're talking about right now. Georgia's game this weekend. Who are they playing this weekend? Let's find out.
UMass. It's homecoming.
So has Georgia already played all their SEC games? They would have had to have.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so Georgia's done then. So that there's another Alabama opponent that's done. So that one doesn't count. Like at that point, it's just a numbers game. Like I don't think there's enough games to benefit Georgia enough. Like for example, let's see, Ole Miss and Florida. Let's look at Georgia for example. Ole Miss and Florida. That's a null game for Georgia because Georgia played both of those teams, and so their conference opponent's average winning percentage isn't going to change at all with that game because that's two of their opponents. It would benefit Georgia if Tennessee beats Vanderbilt in 2 weeks. That would benefit Georgia. I'm trying to think of other games that would. It would benefit Georgia if Florida beats LSU this weekend. It would hurt Georgia if LSU beat Florida this weekend. I mean, there's still a lot that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's looking like it's going to be Texas and Alabama. Well, I shouldn't even say that. The winner of Texas and Texas A&M. It's looking like it's going to be that winner versus Alabama in the SEC championship game. T-Rex liked and subscribed. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that very much. I love it if everybody liked and subscribed. Clint Eastwood is back. He was with us a couple live streams ago. Congratulations on your win last night. Very well coached game by the Dogs. Mario is also here. Mario, thank you for joining us. Congratulations on your win last night. I guess we know now that we actually do have to cover tight ends. Let's see. Eric said, I think Tennessee's best shot to get in the college football playoff is if it's Alabama versus Texas Tennessee championship game. Because like Uvalbro said, Tennessee will get in no matter what the outcome of Bama and Texas is. Yeah, that game helps Tennessee no matter what. That's a big deal. Darth is not happy with Oregon's performance against Wisconsin. But listen, Darth, here's all that matters. They got to win. And that's all the committee cares about. All the committee cares about is how many numbers you have in that loss column. The lower, the better. And that's why you're number one in the country right now, because you don't have any. Let's see. Rhonda said Michigan also has personal. Yeah, the chair of the committee is Michigan's athletic director, sitting athletic director. Let's see here. Ash McVall said money is also the reason that the SEC championship game will not be ending. There's no way the SEC is giving up all those millions so a 5th or 6th team can get in a 12-team playoff. Money is the only reason why it's still happening, in my opinion. Because I guarantee you, if you go around and ask Ask coaches, do you want to play in a SEC championship game, or would you rather have that week off? They're all going to say, yeah, we'll take the week off. Because they all care about the playoff. They don't care. Listen, are you there to win an SEC championship or a national championship? They want to win a national championship. I mean, they want to win both, but they really want to win a national championship. Evan said, bring back the BCS, but for the playoffs. So somebody released a graphic this week, and it compared the BCS rankings and what the committee ranked this past week. It was fascinating. It was really interesting. And Darth said it would take the subjectivity out of it. I would go one step further, and I would say it would take the conference bias out of it.
Yeah.
Because there are active athletic directors from every conference sitting in that room. There's no way that doesn't both positively and negatively impact certain teams in that room. Big Orange said Tennessee and Georgia are both 8-2 in football. It's the only thing Georgia has on Tennessee in any of the three major sports. Okay. I agree. Like he asked, are any of these college football members giving explanations for how things are shaking out? That is a fantastic question. And they did last week. Last week, Tennessee got leapfrogged by both Indiana and BYU in the playoff rankings last week. BYU beat Utah last week, barely squeaked by them. Indiana barely squeaked by Michigan. Tennessee, let's see. Now my weeks are running together. That was who did we play last week? I can't even remember. Man, that's sad. All my weeks are running together. I legit can't remember. It was a home game. I know that. Mississippi State. That's what it was. It just dawned on me. So Tennessee beat Mississippi State. Indiana and BYU leapfrogged Tennessee. And the chair committee said it was because of their big wins against a sub 500 Utah and a 500 Michigan. Unreal.
So I was just looking at the AP top 25 that just dropped. If they went to a 16 best teams in a normal tournament like every other division of college football does,
with no reserved spots 1 through 4.
If they went to that, and obviously the top 25 is going to change a lot the next 3 weeks. But if it started today, Tennessee would be playing at Alabama in the first round, and the winner would be at Ohio State.
Yep. Sam said, if the TV market's big enough, the decision makers will fit the narrative. That's exactly right. Big Orange said, I don't like sport. I like sports. We do too. Evan said, we actually need, this is Evan's a Bama fan. He said, we need Missouri to win. Yeah, you do. You need Missouri to win both their last games if possible, because that helps you all, because like I said, we're to the 4th tiebreaker now. So it is your opponent's average winning percentage. Let's see. Oh, Eric was letting me know who they're playing. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Man, I'm behind, aren't I? Let's see. Darth said, do the standings on ESPN take into account conference tiebreakers? I don't know. Probably not. That's the committee ranking them. So. Mario said he's a Georgia fan. He said Tennessee should be in. I agree totally. I'm about to give my top 12, and I did it differently this week. I did it based solely on who would win neutral site. Like, who's the best teams?
Vegas has us in.
That's good.
Vegas just released their playoff projections, and they have us in.
Big Orange said that we'll be in once it all plays out. I agree. Kevin said BYU losing helped Tennessee. I'm still not convinced the committee won't torch Tennessee. They don't have to justify anything crazy. You just need to justify that an SEC losing Texas is still better than Tennessee. Kevin said we need Ole Miss to lose. Yes, we do. Eric, let me know it's Mississippi State. Hey, I'm almost caught up. Let's see. Jeff said, great counter with the SEC championship game comment. I hope that stays true. And boys, we are back in. Absolutely. I mean,
according to Vegas, we're in now.
So let's look at that. Let's look at, here is today. This is what Rustin was just talking about. Here's today's AP poll. Now listen, before everybody starts telling me in the comments, the AP poll doesn't matter anymore. I get it. I totally understand. I wish I could give you this week's playoff rankings, but they don't come out till Tuesday, so I can't.
I think the AP poll knows they don't matter anymore because Ole Miss beat Georgia last week.
Yeah, and Georgia's ranked ahead of them. Yep, you're exactly right. Here's the deal. If the playoffs started today, based on the AP poll, here's how it would break down. Number 1 would still be Oregon. Number 2 would still be Texas. Number 3 was Miami, but this is why this is so ridiculously stupid. Miami is ranked 11th in the AP poll. But they would, if this were the case, they would jump from 11 to number 3. They would get the 3 seed in the playoff. They jump 8. They leapfrog 8 spots to the 3 seed. That's why this playoff format makes 0 sense. Number 4 would be Boise State. They too would jump 8 spots and go from number 12 to number 4.
Well, when SMU beats Miami in the ACC championship, they're going to jump 10 spots.
Yeah, you're exactly right. If this were the way it breaks down, you're exactly right. So then number 14, everybody's like, oh yeah, the top 12 teams are going to get in the playoff. Nope. In this situation, number 14, BYU, would be the 12th seed. So they're not even in the top 12, but they're getting in.
Why?
Because they would be a conference champion. They have a reserved spot. They would still get to be in as a Power 4 conference champion.
So because they're lower than the group of 5 spot, the group of 5 spot gets.
Yep. That's exactly right.
Whoever the people were at the NCAA that came up with this, they should all be fired. Like this
Amen.
is the
Totally
stupidest thing ever created.
I totally agree.
And
it makes no sense.
And heaven forbid you just pay attention to, I don't know, what every other division in your own organization does every single year.
Yep. Yeah. And you're right. It's their own organization, the NCAA. This is absurd. It is absolutely absurd. Then if you keep going through, so Ohio State would host look at Ohio State's path to the semifinals here. They would host BYU, then they play Boise State on a neutral site, and then get to go to the semifinals. I mean, what in the world? Then Notre Dame would host Alabama in a first-round game, getting the winner goes to Oregon, or doesn't go to Oregon, but plays them on a neutral site. Let's see. Penn State would host Ole Miss. That would be hilarious because Ole Miss would roast them. Indiana would host Georgia. And then Georgia beats Indiana like a drum. And then a rematch of Georgia and Texas. That's how that would play out. So this is how it would be ranked or seeded based on the AP poll. Some of the comments, Big Orange said it makes him throw up looking at how far ahead Bama is ahead of us. Yeah, no, we beat them. I agree. Totally agree. You're going to like my poll in a second. Let's see. JL said that's, the difference between ranking and seeding with this thing. It makes no sense why they're doing this. I agree. Robert, welcome, buddy. He said 1 out of the Big 12, 1 out of the ACC, both probably lose first round. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Well, the first round that they play in, which would actually be the second round because they get probably a first round bye. except in this scenario, BYU would have to play in the first round, and they get waxed by Ohio State. Let's see. Ash McVall said 4 highest rated conference champs. It's not only Power 4. This is what the SEC and Big Ten had to agree on to get the rest of them on board. Well, whoever agreed on it was drunk or something. I don't know. I mean, like, it's just take, like Rustin said, just take the top 12 teams and put them in the tournament. Like, forget conference champions, forget all that. Take the 12 best teams wherever they're from. Listen, if they're from the Pacific Coast Ring of Fire conference, bring them all in, all 12, if that's the 12 best teams, and put them in the tournament. Wherever they're from, just put them in the tournament. Let's see. BFL in Texas, he's right. He said they're attempting to save conference championship games and appease all the contracts and stuff. Yeah, you're right, but it's a shame because it's ruining the playoff. Robert said, I do think having Power 4 conference champs in is a good thing. Well, I mean, look at this particular scenario here. In this scenario, BYU is not one of the 12 best teams in the country, but they're getting in the playoff, even though they'd be a Power 4 champ.
Let me throw some fire on what he just said. There is a very real scenario that unranked Arizona State will be in the Big 12 championship. If they win, that means in this scenario, an unranked team would jump to number 4 or number 5 in the country overnight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still think every Power 4 conference should get an automatic bid? I don't.
This Sunday, today, at 2:00 p.m., was the first week Arizona State has cracked the top 25 in the AP poll in like over a month or more, even.
Yeah.
Like they've snuck in at number 21 now. And so, I mean, they haven't been ranked for a long time. But because because they've had several wins in a row now they've snuck back in today. This was the first week that they've been ranked in the AP poll in a while.
Iowa State still has a chance to be in the Big 12 championship game.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. There are 4 teams, all with a very good chance of being in the Big 12 championship game. I'll put that on the screen here in just a second. Let's see. Big Orange said, apparently it doesn't matter who you lose to. It's who you beat because it's total BS. Ole Miss is ranked that high with losses against LSU and Kentucky. Yeah, that's fair. Rhonda said her watch is telling her to breathe. She said, after this season, I may have to replace my watch. Mina, like he said, it could have been so simple, but college football has made it so convoluted to cover their bias. Yeah, I mean, it should be so simple. Take the 12 best teams from wherever they are in the country, whatever conference they're in, and put them in the playoff. It's really that easy. It is that simple. Jonathan said, how many more years of this playoff format do we have to go through before they can fix their mistakes? At least one more. It can change after next year. Unless, they just really are like, no, we're not doing this. But they're already talking about the 2026 season, which would be the 2027 playoff. That would be the year that it could change. But next year, it's going to be the same way, sadly. Robert said, what are you playing in conference? What good are conferences at all in y'all's mode of thinking? Are we going to remove regional football completely? Okay, so that's a fair question. Here's my thing. Leave the conferences the way they are right now. But if a 2-loss SEC team or a 3-loss SEC team even has a 19th ranked strength of schedule in the country versus an Indiana that has 106th ranked strength of schedule in the country, who really is about to play their first difficult game of the season this week against Ohio State, it's just not the same. Trying to compare that team versus a Tennessee, like On a neutral field, who would win, Indiana or Georgia? On a neutral field, who would win, Indiana or Alabama? On a
So,
neutral field, who would win, Indiana or Tennessee? I mean, like,
so, so just to respond to what he just said here, though, this is not foreign to the NCAA. The NCAA literally does this at every other level of college football. And the conferences do get automatic bids, but it also is decide like it's not you're just not automatically in the top 4 because you won your conference. The rankings and seedings are taken into account along with conference champions. So if somebody, it's just like the NCAA basketball tournament. If somebody ends up winning their conference that shouldn't, they don't just leapfrog up the charts. They end up being the 16 seed and they get waxed by the 1 seed in the first game. And that's what happens in college football also at every other division. If somebody flukes up and wins their conference championship who isn't ranked, they end up the 15 or 16 seed and they get waxed in round 1. What's wrong with this is you're not taking into account conference championships here. You are setting 4 conferences on a pedestal and saying these 4 conference champions are just have to be the 4 best teams in America. And we all know that's just not true. If whoever wins the Big 12 should probably be the 12 seed because there's nobody any good in the Big 12 right now. They're all hovering around the 15 to 20 ranking range. So they should be the 12 seed, whoever wins that game.
yeah.
But, it's this insanity of, again, SMU, currently number 13 in the country. If they win the ACC championship, okay, they're probably better than whoever wins the Big 12 championship. So the Big 12 champ should be the 12 seed and SMU should be the 11 seed. They shouldn't get to leapfrog 10 spots just because they won 1 game against honestly an inferior opponent. So, you can have conference championships and they can matter, but they shouldn't supersede strength of schedule and common sense.
Ash Magval said Colorado's kind of trending towards the favorite right now. Big game this weekend. They are currently in position to make it into the Big 12 championship game as the second seed or the second highest best record in the Big 12. I'm going to show those standings here in just a second. Mina Leggy said she likes the 16-team scenario. Big Orange said at the very least Tennessee should be ranked number 9. Yeah, and once again, to that point, here's what's so interesting about this. We've said repeatedly, to be securely in the playoff, you have to be in the top 10. And shockingly, that's not even the case in this scenario.
Nope.
Because Tennessee is the first team left out, even though they're ranked number 10 in this scenario. So what world does that make sense that you say, all right, we're going to have a 12-team playoff, but this top 10 team isn't going to be in it? I mean, like, it's the most bizarre thing in the world. When I said just put the 12 best teams in, Sam said it's that simple when you have a commissioner that represents the members and not just making more money. Yeah, he's exactly right. Robert said, fact is, it's entertainment and dollars. Yeah, he's exactly right. Sadly, that's the case. Let's see. Sam said it's the participation playoff format.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Honestly, it really is. Like they literally, you can almost hear this conversation going down. The group of 5 at that time, ADs, were in the room. The NCAA was like, how are we going to do this? And the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big 12 were like, well, they have more money than us. It's not fair. And so they came up with this garbage to try to appease those people, one of which doesn't even exist anymore. And it's the most stupid thing they've ever done.
This is my favorite comment so far. Darth Dougie said, I volunteered to let Ohio State be conference champs, so Oregon be the 5 seed, and they get to play host BYU and then play Boise State on a neutral site. That'd actually be a rematch from earlier this year with that Boise State. That's Boise's only loss. Let's see. Hey, that's a great point. VFL in Texas just made a good point. He said currently Texas A&M is ranked 15th in this poll, and they still could potentially win the SEC and get an automatic bid. He's exactly right. That 100% could happen. That's a great point.
Man, can you imagine what would the committee do if Texas A&M upset Texas and then went to the SEC championship and got blown out by Alabama? Oof.
Yeah, that would be. That's a nightmare scenario for the committee.
Yep. I mean, it would be Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee getting in, but that would totally screw up all their brackets.
Mm-hmm. Elijah said first round buys are ruining this thing. It'd be good if it was just 6 first round games of normal seeding. Yeah, agreed.
Well, it can't be 6. It'd have to be 8, but yeah.
Elijah, you're using common sense, man. You're using, well, I mean 6 if you got, those 2 and 2. So yeah, you're using way too much common sense for the NCAA there, Elijah. The NCAA is not known for their common sense. Kevin said Texas, Alabama, Georgia, or Tennessee wouldn't murder SMU or BYU. I don't, but some of these teams just don't compete at as high level all season long. You're right. That's exactly right. Ashmack Vols said kind of need to be Florida and Army super fans the next couple weeks. Yeah, that's exactly right. Rhonda said if it's about money, then Tennessee should be in because we bring money.
That's why I believe we will be.
Sam said, no way Ohio State was thinking this far ahead when they lost. And Darth said it'd be hilarious if both teams played to not win the championship to get into the sweet spot. Let's see. All right, so let's go to mine. And here's what I did. I did it totally different this week. I just did it based on who do I think is legit right now on November the 17th. Who are the top 12 teams in the country? Who is that? And here's what I got. Right now, this week, I'd say these are the 12 best teams in the country.
What the heck?
I'm telling you. And so I said, what if they played on a neutral site? A neutral site. I got Oregon, Ohio State, number 1 and 2, Texas, number 3, Ole Miss at number 4 because they beat Georgia head to head, Georgia at number 5 because they beat Tennessee head to head, Tennessee at number 6 because they beat Alabama head to head, Alabama at number 7 because they beat South Carolina head to head, and South Carolina is playing very well right now. I know that their passing game isn't as good as some other teams, but they took Alabama to overtime at Alabama. They beat Missouri this week. South Carolina is playing extremely well. I mean, there's no way of getting around that. They're playing very, very well. I've got Indiana at number 9 because, okay, let's be honest. If South Carolina and Indiana were on a neutral site, who wins? Probably South Carolina. You put Indiana against any of the teams 1 through 8 on a neutral site, who wins the game? All of the teams 1 through 8. Indiana, Penn State, you put those 2 teams on a neutral site, who wins the game? I'm saying Indiana. Boise State at 11, because once again, Boise State's only loss is against Oregon, and it was a 3-point loss at Oregon. And then Notre Dame at number 12, because they are playing very well right now. But here's the deal. You'll notice I don't have a Big 12 team on this list. I also don't have an ACC team on this list. So in this situation, My ACC team would have been number 13, and that would have been Miami. Because if I think about Miami and SMU on a neutral site, I think Cam Ward and Miami beats them. Then I got a Big 12 team. Who's the best Big 12 team right now? I'm going to say BYU. Will Colorado or Iowa State beat them in the championship game? Potentially. So if this were my bracket and I was on the playoff committee, this is what this is why the seeding is so ridiculous. So yeah, Oregon's still number 1, Texas number 2, but Boise State would be number 3. As the 11th ranked team, they would be number 3 because they're ranked ahead of both ACC and Big 12 champions. Miami would jump from number 13 all the way up to number 4. BYU would jump from number 15 up to number 12. So the 15th ranked team would get in. And then you'd have Ohio State hosting BYU, winner plays Miami. Check this out. I didn't even plan this. It just worked out this way. Tennessee would host Alabama in Neyland for the second time in the same season. And the winner plays Oregon. How crazy would that be? They host them again, second time in the same season. Ole Miss would host Indiana. That would be a blowout. And then Ole Miss would go probably blow out Boise State. And so Ole Miss would have a cakewalk as the 6th seed to the playoff, the semifinal. Georgia would host South Carolina. I think that'd be a pretty fun game to watch. I think Georgia would win. And then you've got a rematch of Georgia and Texas. This would be fun to watch. Just saying.
You're gonna keep putting Beamer. You're gonna keep putting Beamer in this crap. You're gonna have to put Evans top 11 at the top of this. I don't want my name on this.
Who's below them? Who's playing better consistently right now than South Carolina?
SMU.
So you think on a neutral site, SMU beats South Carolina?
Yes.
You think on a neutral site, SMU beats Miami?
Yes. I think they beat Notre Dame. I think they beat Boise State. I think they'd beat Penn State.
Well, the good news is we're going to find out. That's the good news. A lot of comments came in about my top 12 there. Let's see. Kevin said South Carolina is just too inconsistent. Elijah said South Carolina at 8. I mean, dude, they're playing well. They beat. They're beating everybody, and they almost beat Alabama at Alabama. Let's see. Darth said any of those teams would have beat Oregon last night. Let's see. Robert said it's not really team money that he's speaking about. It's conference money and their prospective contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Ash McVall said Boise ain't the same team that played close to Oregon, and Oregon's way better than they were when they beat them. Correct. Boise doesn't belong in the top 25. Tulane is the best group of 5 team.
Yeah, I'm still going to go with Army on that one. I've been saying since the beginning of the year, Army was the best group of 5, and I'm going to keep rolling with them.
Will agrees that if they played on a neutral field, Indiana beats Penn State.
Yep.
Kevin said, come on, Evan, where's Coach Prime in Colorado? Better than Notre Dame, at least.
If we end up with one of these that has both Shane Beamer and Deion Sanders on it, I'm out. Show's over. Not doing it anymore.
Robert said Tulane is better than Boise State in his opinion. Tulane's a great team. They're a great team. Elijah said there's no Big 12 or ACC teams because they're both awful. Exactly. Yep. That's exactly right. Sam said, I don't see South Carolina, but their game against Clemson is going to be fun to watch. Okay, so like Rustin right now, if Clemson and South Carolina are on a neutral site, who's winning?
Probably South Carolina because Clemson's crazy overrated.
I agree. Kevin said Miami deserves to be in. They have a puncher's chance with their offense. So, I mean, they just got to beat SMU in the conference championship game, and they're in. Jonathan said South Carolina came out of nowhere on this one. And he's right. They did. And it's because I was legitimately trying to think who right now on November 17th, which teams in the country are playing the best. And it's hard to ignore what South Carolina's doing. Let's see. Kevin said, I'm with you, except I'd replace South Carolina and Notre Dame with Colorado and Miami. Rhonda said, at this rate, everyone gets a participation trophy. I knew playoffs would be crazy, but I didn't expect it to be plain nuts. Let's see. Robert said Ole Miss is dangerous. They are, absolutely. Let's see. VFL said South Carolina doesn't play nearly as well away from home. Well, I mean, they took Alabama to overtime in Tuscaloosa. That's not bad. Robert said go Army. Absolutely. Let's see. Robert thinks South Carolina would beat Clemson as well.
Yeah.
Elijah said any basketball talk tonight, or did I miss it?
I think we're going to have to wait on Thursday for that one.
Yeah. We haven't gotten to it yet, but so here's the thing. Let's look at this weekend's games and real quick, I'll show you the Big 12 situation. So this is the current Big 12 standings right here. I'll zoom in so people can see it. So right now, BYU and Colorado are tied, both with one conference loss. However, Arizona State and Iowa State are still very, very much in the mix for getting to the conference championship game. And this right here is why Arizona State just now got back into the AP poll. Notice they have a 3-game winning streak right now. They were 5-2 overall, and now they're 8-2, which is why they've now gotten back in. But all 4 of these teams still very much in contention for the Big 12 championship game. That matters because this is a spot that, listen, Tennessee is ranked higher than every single one of these teams. But if it plays out the way the AP poll is currently laid up, one of these 4 teams is taking Tennessee's spot in the playoff. So does this stuff matter? Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, it does. So this weekend is huge because, like Rustin was saying earlier, this weekend BYU plays Arizona State. The winner of that game this weekend probably goes to the Big 12 championship game because they're going to have the head-to-head tiebreaker over the other. So that's essentially a play-in game this weekend for the Big 12 championship. Colorado has to play Kansas this weekend. Kansas beat BYU yesterday. Iowa State, they've got a big game at Utah this weekend. Utah almost took down BYU last week. So all 4 of these teams have huge games this week. It's going to be a big deal. As far as the Vol Bros contest, Rustin will like this. So right now, Rustin has extended his lead to 3 games. He is atop the standings at 3-game lead right now. I'm 7 games back now. I have no chance of coming back at this point.
Well, I can tell you if anybody wants to make up 1-game ground, pick Notre Dame this weekend because I'm rolling with Army.
This week's games, like I said, this is a huge week, man. This is a huge week. All of these games are on Saturday, by the way. There are games starting Tuesday this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The whole week long, there's games. All of the games we're picking are on Saturday. So picks are due by Friday night, November 22nd. We got Indiana at Ohio State. Top 5 matchup. Huge game. Ole Miss at Florida. Massive playoff implication games. That's the thing. Like we said, the games that we're going to pick are going to be games that are, first of all, just going to be good games, but secondly, games that have national significance. Well, that one has a lot of it. Ole Miss at Florida. Kentucky at Texas. Nationally significant game. Kentucky beat Ole Miss at Ole Miss. Could they pull the same thing and beat Texas? Ole Miss has a stronger schedule than Texas does. So you can make the case that Ole Miss might be a better team. We're going to find out this week. Texas, they have to stand their ground there. BYU at Arizona State, clearly a huge game. One of those two teams is playing for the chance to get into the playoff, or both teams are playing. Both teams are playing for the chance to get in the playoff because one of these two teams is going to be in the Big 12 championship playing as a playing game to get in the playoff. So that's a huge game right there. Colorado at Kansas, we just explained that's a huge game. Army at Notre Dame. All Tennessee fans everywhere are huge Army fans this week. If Army beats Notre Dame is out of the playoff. There's no way they can let Notre Dame into the playoff with a loss against Army and a loss against Northern Illinois. And not only did they lose to Northern Illinois, they lost to them at home. So that is a huge game. We all need Army to beat Notre Dame this weekend. Alabama at Oklahoma, clearly a huge national significance in that game. If Alabama loses, they're out. Like they'll be out of the playoff if they lose that game. Texas A&M at Auburn. If Auburn beats Texas A&M, all of a sudden that throws a lot of new curveballs into the SEC championship game scenarios. Because now all of a sudden you've got a 3-loss A&M team, 2 losses in conference, and they're automatically going to be. Oh man, that could be wild. Iowa State at Utah. We already talked about it. It's a huge nationally significant game because Iowa State's still in the Big 12 championship game hunt. And Vanderbilt at LSU. As Tennessee fans, we need Vanderbilt to beat LSU. It helps us if Vandy wins that game. So this weekend, Tennessee fans are rooting for either Indiana or Ohio State to blow the other one out. Doesn't matter who it is. Just somebody needs to blow the other one out. We need Florida to beat Ole Miss. We need Army to beat Notre Dame. And we need Vanderbilt to beat LSU. We're rooting for Vanderbilt, Army, Florida, and a blowout. in the horseshoe. Somebody to beat somebody really bad. That's what we need. So with that being said, let's see our final comments of the evening here. I can't find my mouse on my screen. There we go. Final comments here. TK said, even though South Carolina is playing better right now, they still have 3 losses. They don't deserve to be on your board. Well, that's the beauty of it. It's my board. And I picked the teams that I was like, forget records, forget that. If they played on a neutral site today, who would win? Who is the better team today? That's why I put them in there, because they're proving it over and over. Robert said South Carolina may take down Clemson, but they're not making the playoff. I 100% agree. I never said they would make the playoff. I just said, here's the best teams. They're totally out of the playoff picture. They have no chance of getting in. VFL said Colorado's probably going to win the Big 12. Maybe. Kevin said Zakai went 12 for 12 until his last half court shot in the first half. 3 of those are 3-pointers. Akpar blocked shots. AP didn't even take one.
No, he's saying 8 block shots Austin P didn't even take.
Oh, that's pretty good. Let's see. Mr. Jones said the Big Ten is so weak. There are 3 good teams, maybe 4, and they can beat a bunch of nobodies and get rewarded. You're 100% correct. That's exactly right. VFL said Big 12 champion can't possibly take Tennessee spot. Well, they are right now as we speak, based on the AP poll.
You're saying two different things. Evan is saying because the 4 teams that are in contention, one of them will take a spot, and unfortunately that should be Tennessee's spot, but because of the stupid rules, a weaker team. You could say that about the ACC also. Tennessee would win the ACC or the Big 12 easily.
But because the way the playoff format is, the Big 12 champion and the ACC champion are going to get in over somebody in the SEC. And right now, Tennessee is the lowest ranked team at number 10 in the AP poll. And so if it were based on the AP poll, both of those schools, even though they're ranked lower, would get in ahead of Tennessee, and Tennessee would be the first team out. And that's just because of the playoff, or the way it's formatted. We'll see what the playoff committee does on Tuesday, but historically, they have not been favorable towards Tennessee, sadly. Let's see. Robert said Kansas is the Kentucky of the Big 12, wouldn't sleep on them. I agree. I mean, they took down BYU this week. Let's see. Spencer said you can really tell that Vegas is running the big show. You said it, not me, buddy. But there's some stuff going down. That's all I got to say. Hey, Kevin, how about that? He said, got a wedding next Saturday, All-Star, so I might miss next week. Let me know how we do with UTEP. Kevin, that is very exciting. I had no clue, actually. So I'm super pumped for y'all. Congratulations. That's really, really cool. Ash McVall said it'll be a great week for Kentucky to show up. Yeah, for real. Absolutely. Will said, is there any way that an undefeated Army makes the playoffs?
Not unless Boise loses.
Or the playoff committee just changes their mind and switches them. I don't see that happening, but yeah, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's definitely possible, for sure.
They should. If they played Boise, they'd beat them.
Let's see. Robert said keep an eye on that Auburn A&M game.
Yep,
I hope so. Robert said Army taking out Notre Dame is Tennessee's best path. Totally agree. Absolutely. Spencer said Tennessee still got to handle their own business, though. That's exactly right. Sam said, is Brian Kelly on the hot seat if LSU loses to Vanderbilt?
100%. He already is. There's only I saw a stat the other day. I want to say it was like in the last 20 years, there's only been 3 coaches at LSU that have lost 3 games in a row, and all 3 of them got fired.
Rhonda said there's always unseen upsets. There sure are. Spencer said Indiana could possibly upset Ohio State. They could. Whoever does, we just want them to beat the snot out of the other team, though, because that helps us out. Mr. Jones is 100% correct. He said we need to play like the Globetrotters the next 2 weeks to make it to where they can't deny us. Absolutely. We have learned from the playoff committee that style points matter.
Yeah,
they really do. And that's why that last touchdown that Georgia scored is potentially devastating to Tennessee, because, we were like, if we just keep it close there, then that, could be okay. But now they're going to be like, oh, it was a 2-touchdown game, when it was actually much closer than the final score indicated. Sam said transfer portal and opt-outs are going to kill the Bowls 1,000 bajillion trillion %. Yes. Big Orange said Hype should start scheduling better crappy teams. LOL. Would that help with rankings any at all? Yeah, it would. That's what Nick Saban did at Alabama. I mean, you schedule the worst possible teams you can, because all that matters is wins and losses. That's all the playoff committee looks at. If no one believes me, just look at Indiana, 106th ranked strength of schedule. And because of that, they're in the top 5 in the country. It doesn't matter who you play. All that matters is the win and loss column. It's been that way for years and years and years and years. And every year that goes by, the playoff committee proves it more and more and more and more. That's why I had South Carolina in mind, because I was like, forget that. Just give me who the best teams are. Forget the wins and losses. Just who is playing good right now. That's why I had South Carolina in mind, because they're playing better than a lot of teams right now. Elijah said, how far will Indiana drop once they get blown out by Ohio State? I don't think they're going to get blown out, personally. I hope somebody does, but I don't think it's going. I think it's going to be a really close game, and that's why I don't think whoever loses that game, they're not going to drop, because it's going to end up being a close game. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Sam said, schedule crappy teams with an even crappier schedule themselves. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Because then that makes you look better. I totally agree. Well, that was that might be the longest show, the second longest show we've ever had, 2 hours and 6 minutes. We appreciate everybody joining us. Robert said, I think the Hoosiers are out with a loss to OSU, but I wouldn't write that in blood. Not if it's a close loss. That's the thing. If it's a close loss, that's only their first loss, and it would be to the number 2 team in the country. Like, how can you punish them for that if it's close?
I can. I'd be more than happy to do that for them.
I understand, but I'm just talking about the playoff committee's mode of operation. Elijah, thanks, man. Thanks for joining us. Kevin, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. Big Orange said, technically, can't you schedule good teams as the 4 neutral teams you get to play? You could if you wanted to.
There's no
I don't know why
reason
you'd want to, though. Yeah, just schedule easy wins. That's all you got to do. And the conference is going to give you the schedule you have to play against them. But I mean, if any team that you get a choice to play, make it as easy as humanly possible. That's my vote on that. Will said Ohio State's going to manhandle Indiana. I hope so.
That would be good.
Ron said, I hope everyone has a great week. Thanks, Vol Bros. Hope Miyawaki see you Thursday. I hope we get to see everybody back on Thursday. Hope we get to see everybody. Robert, appreciate you, buddy. The wise man just said Saturday was not fun, but there were definitely some moments that can galvanize players for sure. Totally agree. Big Art said exactly. Just schedule the easiest teams possible. Absolutely. That's what Nick Saban did, and he won 18,000 championships. So it seems like a good plan. Well, we appreciate everybody so much. We hope that all of you join us again on Thursday at 9:00 Eastern. We look forward to seeing you then, and go Vols.